And welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. This is another special episode of Cottage Talk. We're going to be talking a little transfer speculation in the next 15 minutes involving two Fulham players. The transfer window is closed, but we're going to be looking forward to the next window. And I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on these two players. And the question is, how concerned should we be with the reported interest in two Fulham defenders? They are Antonee Robinson and Tosin. So, how worried are you? Feel free to share your thoughts about this in the comment section, or take it in this way, because I'm asking the question, I'll be sharing my thoughts on this. Would you sell him? Either one of them, if the price was right. We'll be talking about the price reportedly that Fulham want for Antonee Robinson, if you believe the Sun. So we'll talk about that. And we'll be talking about the situation with Tosin. There's also, believe it or not, a lot of interest, speculation with Tosin Adebayo. So you got two Fulham defenders. And I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on both of them in the next 15 minutes. Before I go on any further, as always, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. It does help other Fulham supporters find us. We really appreciate it. And also, I'm mentioning this a lot now, if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please do leave a review and leave a rating. That also helps other Fulham supporters find us. We would really appreciate the feedback as well. I want to know how you feel about all these shows I've been doing, along with my co-host here. How do you feel about Cottage Talk basically doing a show every single day? Do you like it? Do you not like it? I hope you do. I'm giving you a lot of choices. And I have proven the point that you can talk about Fulham each and every day. Yes, you can. There can be talk on Fulham every day. I proved that point. The question is, do you want to listen? That's up to you, and I hope you do. Okay, so let's get to it. Let's talk about these two players that, again, there's been speculation of the last 48 hours about both of these players. With Antonee Robinson, it really started at the end of the window. We started to see talk coming from Turkey about Manchester City interest in him. And honestly, the source, I didn't really give too much to it. So I kind of just pushed that aside. I really didn't think too much about that type of speculation. However, this weekend, Alan Nixon in the Sun, and you could say what you want about the Sun, but there is speculation out there of reported interest from Man City in Antonee Robinson. And according to the article, Fulham want 35 million pounds for Antonee Robinson. That's a lot of money. So, but honestly, it really makes sense to me. I think Antonee Robinson has become extremely valuable to how Fulham play under Marco Silva. So that is not crazy to me. Also, if they're going to be forced to give up Antonee Robinson, the price has to be very high, because that will go to my question that I'm going to be going through this quick show. Would you sell him if the price is right? Now, 35 million pounds sounds pretty good, right? It does. It sounds great. But I'll ask this. Is the player more valuable than the price? With Antonee Robinson, I never thought I'd even be questioning. I would say take the 35 million pounds, reinvest it in Fulham. You can find another left back. However, I think that he has become such a staple in Marco's system that I actually think 35 million sounds great. But I think you do what you can to try to get Antonee Robinson to sign a new contract before the summer. That is what I would do. I would try to get him to sign a new contract. If he's not willing to sign a new contract because eventually he wants to leave, well, then there you go. Then you would probably look towards the money. But for me, the player right now, we're months away, is more valuable than the 35 million pounds to Fulham Football Club. I know that sounds crazy, especially how much crap I gave Jedi last season, but he is suited for the Premier League. He's suited for Marco's system. I want him at Fulham, unless he doesn't want to be at Fulham. If he doesn't want to be at Fulham and he makes a stink, he doesn't want to sign a new contract, then that will force your hand, and then the money looks great because you could do a lot with 35 million pounds. But if I'm Fulham, I stick to it because that is really going to eliminate a lot of potential suitors for Antonee Robinson. It really is. only really rich clubs, I think, at this point that have money to spend. And listen, the situation that we're hearing about Man City might be in flux when we get to the summer. Who knows what's going on with them? But for me, if I'm basing it on today, I'm saying you do what you can to keep Antonee Robinson at Fulham Football Club. That is my priority. You get a contract in front of him. Hopefully, it's something that he wants to do. He wants to sign. If he wants to sign, you give him a long-term contract, and then you can really build on something with Jedi. But he has to want to be a Fulham. I hope he does. But if he indicates that he does not want to be a Fulham Football Club, then you got to go in the other direction, and you have to cash in this summer. So really, the cards are with Antonee Robinson at the point. He holds all the leverage. He really does. So he's going to be able to call the shots on this. And you know what? Maybe he's deserved that opportunity to call the shots. He's played very well. But I hope it doesn't come to that. I really do. I hope he becomes a Fulham player for a very long period of time, signs a new contract. But we're going to be going into, I believe, the last year of his deal next season. So that's why this situation is really going to heat up over the summer. So I'm not shocked by the speculation. Is it true? Who knows? But if there is some truth to it, and I think there could be, because who wouldn't want to be interested right now in Antonee Robinson, then Fulham need to be proactive, and they need to really negotiate with Jedi now. They need to be doing it now. And what's interesting about this, and I'll talk about Tosin as well, one other thing that I want to talk about with Jedi, the fact that if this is true and Fulham have a player that they are basically looking at wanting 35 million pounds just shows how far Fulham have come in such a short period of time. The fact that we have players that other clubs want is actually a huge compliment to the direction that Fulham are going in. But this is where it gets interesting. And I remember speaking on another podcast, the EPL Roundtable, to a Wolves supporter. And he talked about how this season of Fulham reminds him of their first season in the Premier League, back in the Premier League, and how it was great until they started to get their best players poached away. And that's going to be the key here, to keep your best players as long as possible, because they started losing their players. And then next thing you know, Wolves are where they are right now. It can happen very quickly. So Fulham, if they decide to take the money, they have to invest it wisely. And, I don't think they're in a place right now, if the money is really crazy, to say no. 35 million, I still think that you can question it, believe it or not, if he wants to stay at Fulham. If Antonee Robinson wants to stay, you make it happen. Forget about the money. The player's more valuable. But it really is down to the want of Antonee Robinson in my book. Does he want to be a Fulham player long term? That's what I hope. We shall see. Let's see. I do have some comments, so I'll see if I can share some comments. This is from my friend Chris Goodwin. Every player has their price, and if it meets Fulham's evaluation and you can scout good replacements, then all options should be put on the table. Chris, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. If that's their valuation, 35 million. But I will say this, if Robinson wants to stay at Fulham, that to me is the caveat. Then you don't make the move. You don't take the money. You stick with Antonee Robinson and you give him a new deal. Let's see what else we got. This is from Billy Cassie. Yeah, agree, Russ. We need to do all possible to keep him. I agree. I agree. Let's see what other comments we have. This is from Ralph Leach. Take the money and buy Matt Target. I love Matt Target, by the way. Ralph, that made me laugh because I'm a huge fan of Matt Target. And I wouldn't be against bringing back Matt Target. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think Jedi is more valuable to Fulham than bringing in Matt Target. But if you were bringing him in as a replacement, I think I could live with that and then see what you could do with the rest of the money. That's not so crazy. It isn't. But I would rather keep Antonee Robinson, which is funny for me to say. Let's see what else we have. This is from Wayne. Well, I think that Anthony Robinson will sign a new contract for Fulham, 100% sure. Listen, Wayne, I hope you're right. Only time will tell if you're right. But that to me is what it's going to take. It's going to come down to him wanting to stay at Fulham because I don't know how other supporters feel, but I want players that want to be at Fulham and want to wear the shirt. I think he does. But if he has aspirations of going someplace else, then take the money. That's just the way. If the money is what we think it might be, then that's where you go. And then you go down Ralph's path and maybe you get Matt Target. I'm not against Matt Target. I'm totally not against that. I see your point there. Okay. Coming up in the second half of this show, I'm going to be talking about Tosin. Okay. So I spent a good amount of time talking about Jedi. Now it's time to talk about Tosin. This one's a little bit interesting because I'm not sure how the Fulham supporters feel about this. I think right now that your starting two center backs are Diop and Ream. You're not replacing Ream. And honestly, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think Ream might be able to do it one more year. I think he can. I think Thiago Silva has proved that you can be a center back late in your career if you have that mindset, that knowledge, that confidence, that leadership. Tim Ream has all of it. So I think you might be able to get one more year out of him. So if that's the case, then I'm going to change my tune on Tosin. And would I sell him if the price is right? The answer is yes. I would sell Tosin if the price is right, because I think Diop has shown me that he should be one of the two starting center backs to go along with Tim Ream. Now, Tosin, I just see as a player that has more upside, more potential. But at some point, do you value the upside more than the money? If the money is significant and reportedly he's being monitored by several clubs, including Inter, if the money is right and a similar situation going into the last year of his contract next season, you have to consider it. You do have to consider it. And I might cash in on Tosin. That's just how I feel about that. I don't think Tosin has been bad for Fulham. In fact, I think he's been effective at times. But he always seems to have that one mistake, and people could say the same thing about Diop. But I think Diop is more of a center back of what Marco Silva is looking for. So if you're getting me to choose between Tosin and Ream and Diop, the odd man out for me is Tosin. So I might sell Tosin this summer. But again, will Tosin sign a new deal? That's something to consider as well. Would he sign a new contract with Fulham? And would it be a friendly deal, which makes sense, which is not out of control? Does he want to stay at Fulham? So that's a factor too. But if the money is right, there are players that you should think about cashing in on. I think Tosin's one of them. So I say yes to cashing in on Tosin. That's my thoughts on Tosin. But again, we're several months away from that. But I thought since there's speculation out there, I would spend a little time talking about that. Okay, let's see what else we have here. This is from Kamal. I remember being in the Riverside stand, people shouting to Tosin to sign the contract, and him looking visibly concerned. I think Tosin has parted in his mind. It's possible. And if that's the case, Kamal, then you have to move on. If he's not invested in Fulham Football Club, I don't know if he is or not. But if he's not willing to sign the new contract, just like I said with Antonee Robinson, you have to consider the money. You definitely have to consider the money. So here's an interesting question. What do you think his price is, Russ? Well, what's interesting, I went on Transfer Market today, and the price had him, I believe, at 18 million euros, which is pretty high. So I think, that's not so crazy for someone like Tosin. I don't think that's crazy at all. So for me, if that's the ballpark you're playing in, I think I would take that. But again, that's Transfer Market. Who knows what his real value is? The true value is when teams bid for him. That really sets the market. But Transfer Market gives you an idea. See, so, and Chris, I just shared my thoughts on what I think Tosin might be able to get. But we'll see. And again, in both cases, Fulham would really make out so well because they spent so little for both of these players. But I'm not about the return on the investment. That doesn't interest me. What interests me is building Fulham Football Club for the future, not just this season, but for the future. Are you better with Antonee Robinson and Tosin in 2023-24 season? I think so. With Antonee Robinson, it's definite yes. The question is, does he want to be at Fulham? I hope he does. Tosin, does he want to be at Fulham? I hope he does as well. These are the decisions that the Cons need to make this summer because there's an opportunity for Fulham to upgrade this summer. And you might be able to use some of these players for upgrades. The question will be not to downgrade, meaning I don't want them to just get the money just for the sake of the money to reinvest. I want them to have a plan. If they're going to get rid of Antonee Robinson, they better have a plan. They better have the backup plan. I hate Brentford, but they have a backup plan. They know what they're going to do. They have a plan ready in place when they lose players. You need to have a plan ready in place. Brighton does it very well. If you're going to sell the players, you better have a plan. And it better be a real good one. Okay. Good stuff. Okay. Well, before I go, I also want to mention this goes along with all of this. And I know people have saw me mention this in a prior show. And I'll say this to go along with these two players. Fulham need to do whatever they can to sign Marco Silva to a new contract. Now, it's a negotiation, and I hope that this happens before the summer. They put a contract in front of him, and Marco signs with Fulham for the long term. I think the Cons are sold on Marco, and I hope Marco is sold on the Cons and Fulham Football Club for the long term because Fulham could really build something with Marco Silva. So for me, this is the key to everything that happens this summer. Marco Silva signing a new contract. I hope it happens. I'll leave you with that. This is the one to really look at. Not Antonee Robinson, not Tosin. It's Marco Silva. Let's hope he signs a new contract with Fulham before we get to the summer. I think that would be very important for the club. Okay. Let's see. I've got a couple more comments. Let's see what else we have. Let's see. This is from Chris Goodwin. Marco Silva signing a new contract would be the biggest deal Fulham could pull off. Absolutely, Chris. That's why I'm bringing this up. This, to me, is the key to everything that Fulham can do afterwards. It starts with Silva. Got to sign Silva to a new deal. See, and Wayne Walden shares. I think that Marco Silva will sign a new contract for Fulham. I hope so, Wayne. Hasn't yet, but we shall see. And like you had mentioned, I sure hope he does. Because Fulham can really, I think, head to really good heights if Marco Silva signs a new deal. If not, they're going to have to reevaluate and move on. But I think the key to building something right now for Fulham Football Club is signing Marco Silva. And that's how I wanted to end this quick podcast. Okay. Well, before we go, as always, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, please do leave us a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts. It does help other Fulham supporters find us and supporters of other clubs. Now, I was thinking about doing a podcast today about the Sunderland match. I'm actually going to do it tomorrow, Tuesday. That'll be my preview of the match. And then, of course, we'll have a show after Wednesday's match. So a lot more to come from Cottage Talk in the coming days. But that's going to do it for this episode. My name is Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk, now part of the TalkSport Fan Network.